Today we are going to explain to you about an interesting dinosaur that lived in the late Cretaceous and the largest terrestrial apex predator lived. So without further talking, we'll get into the topic. The sail giant of the Nile. In 1912, a collector for German paleontologist Ernst Stromer emerged from the Egyptian desert with the remains of the biggest predatory dinosaur the world had ever seen, and they were then lost when the ALT Academy Museum in Munich, Germany, in which it was stored, was destroyed due to a bombing in 1944. In 1996, Canadian paleontologist Dale Russell found more remains of this remarkable creature in Morocco. This apex predator was longer and probably heavier than the mighty Tyrannosaurus rex. This creature may have measured more than 50 feet long, arguably still the largest terrestrial carnivore known. It possessed crocodile-like teeth and a row of enormous spines projecting from vertebrae, which prompted Stromer to name the beast Spinosaurus. Sail is the most significant feature of this enormous critter. Some living lizards employ similar sails for sexual display. Perhaps Spinosaurus too sported to sail to win the attention of mates, as some paleontologists hypothesize about Amargasaurus. The sail may also have helped Spinosaurus to regulate body temperature, serving as a radiator to cool the blood, much as a car radiator cools the water circulating through an engine. Then again, perhaps the various renderings of a sail-bearing Spinosaurus have all missed the mark. As Smithsonian paleontologist Hans-Dieter Suess points out, other related dinosaurs such as Baryonyx regulated their body temperature just fine, sans sail. Suess seconds a notion put forth a decade ago by Jack Bowman Bailey of Western Illinois University. The spines instead supported a structure similar to a bison's hump. If Spinosaurus had puny and slender spines, they might have supported a sail, but these were very massive. It makes more sense that Spinosaurus's spines were embedded in a lot of muscle and tissue, says Suess. Other scientists argue that humps are usually found in herbivores in an arid environment, while Spinosaurus, a carnivore, appears to have been in coastal mangrove forests. Paleontologist Paul Sereno ascribes to the theory that the spines supported a sail for sexual display. Cenomanian, a closely related predecessor, had much smaller vertebral spines. Two species of Spinosaurus have been named, Spinosaurus aegyptiacus meaning Egyptian spine lizard, and the disputed Spinosaurus moroccanus meaning Moroccan spine lizard. The first described remains of Spinosaurus were found and described in the early 20th century. In 1912, Richard Markgraf discovered a partial skeleton of a giant theropod dinosaur in the Bahariya Formation of western Egypt. In 1915, German paleontologist Ernst Stromer published an article assigning the specimen to a new genus and species, Spinosaurus aegyptiacus. Fragmentary additional remains from Bahariya, including vertebrae and hind limb bones, were designated by Stromer as Spinosaurus B in 1934. Stromer considered them different enough to belong to another species, and this has been borne out. With the advantage of more expeditions and materials, it appears that they pertain either to Carcharodontosaurus or to Sigelmassasaurus. Moroccanus was originally described by Dale Russell in 1996 as a new species based on the length of its neck vertebrae. Specifically, Russell claimed that the ratio of the length of the centrum, body of vertebra, to the height of the posterior articular facet was 1.1 in S. Aegyptiacus, and 1.5 in S. Moroccanus. Later authors have been split on this topic. Some authors note that the length of the vertebrae can vary from individual to individual, that the holotype specimen was destroyed and thus cannot be compared directly with the S. Moroccanus specimen, and that it is unknown which cervical vertebrae the S. Moroccanus specimens represent. Therefore, though some have retained the species as valid without much comment, most researchers regard S. Moroccanus as a nomen dubium, or as a junior synonym of S. aegyptiacus. Since its discovery, Spinosaurus has been a contender for the longest and largest theropod dinosaur. Both Friedrich von Huene in 1926 and Donald F. Glut in 1982 listed it as among the most massive theropods in their surveys, at 15 meters in length and upwards of 6 metric tons in weight. In 1988, Gregory Paul also listed it as the longest theropod at 15 meters, but gave a lower mass estimate of 4 metric tons. In 2005, Dal Sasso and colleagues assumed that Spinosaurus and the Spinosaurid Cenomanian had the same body proportions concerning their skull lengths, and thereby calculated that Spinosaurus was 16 to 18 meters in length and 7 to 9 metric tons in weight. These estimates were criticized because the skull length estimate was uncertain and, assuming that body mass increases as the cube of body length, scaling Cenomanian, which was 11 meters long and 3.8 metric tons in mass to the range of estimated lengths of Spinosaurus would produce an estimated body mass of 11.7 to 16.7 metric tons. François Therian and Donald Henderson, in a 2007 paper using scaling based on skull length, challenged previous estimates of the size of Spinosaurus, finding the length too great and the weight too small. Based on estimated skull lengths of 1.5 to 1.75 meters, their estimates include a body length of 12.6 to 14.3 meters, and a body mass of 12 to 20.9 metric tons. The lower estimates for Spinosaurus would imply that the animal was shorter and lighter than Carcharodontosaurus and Giganotosaurus. The Therian and Henderson study has been criticized for the choice of theropods used for comparison. As an example, most of the theropods used to set the initial equations were Tyrannosaurids and Carnosaurs, which have a different build than Spinosaurids, and for the assumption that the Spinosaurus skull could be as little as 1.5 meters in length. Thank you for your support and stay tuned for our next episode of the Dinosaur Science series, Project E750, and our next video, The Unseen Dinosaur Killer. The sail giant of the Nile.